Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 209. On tonight's show, we're going to talk about Alan Dershowitz's recent appearance on the Stephen Colbert Tuning Out the News program. Now, I found this rather odd that Dershowitz would go on to a program like this, considering the format over at this program and considering that you knew that there was going to be a few questions about Epstein. Well, it was a little bit more than that. And the clip was absolutely hilarious. This is not a show that I usually watch. To be honest with you, I don't watch much TV unless it's garbage reality TV or a couple of different shows that I like. I don't watch anything on broadcast TV for the most part. So someone sent me the clip, and I watched the clip, and I thought this would be certainly something that we should discuss here on the program. So let's jump into this article. This article is from the Daily Beast, and the author is Matt Wilstein. Headline: Alan Dershowitz grilled on Jeffrey Epstein by tuning out the news. Alan Dershowitz has been lying relatively low during quarantine after he was implicated in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking scandal more than a year ago. Well, he has been lying kind of low, right? I haven't seen Epstein out too often. Dershowitz out too often lately, doing the circuit, talking on the news, running his yap like he's so apt to do. I haven't seen much of that lately. So I wonder what would motivate him to pop up out of wherever he was hiding at to come on tuning out the news. You would think he'd try and get on one of the usual programs that he's on, the more serious, quote unquote, if anything in the dumpster fire of the legacy media can even be considered serious at this point. You would think he'd show up there. But no, he shows up here on tuning out the news. That made his decision to appear as a guest this week on the Stephen Colbert-produced comedy show Tuning Out the News all the more baffling. 100%. Why the hell would he come on this program? I'm not a huge fan of Stephen Colbert or this show in particular, but you know that Dershowitz, especially considering him being somebody who defended Trump and the climate surrounding Trump when it comes to people like Colbert, you knew that they were going to fire some shots and dig in. I don't know how Dershowitz ended up on the show, to be honest with you. And if you haven't heard the line of questioning that the cartoon newscasters, and I mean real cartoon newscasters, not actual cartoon newscasters like, Jake Tapper, but real cartoons. Yeah, their line of questioning was absolutely hilarious in my opinion. The cartoon host did not hold back in grilling him about his connections to the late billionaire pedophile, noting that Dershowitz helped negotiate what many considered to be a sweetheart plea deal for Epstein with the Southern District of Florida in 2007. Fictional Hot Take co-host Jonathan Keene asked, "Do you think anyone will beat your record of discrediting 34 accusers in a single plea deal?" It's like the questions that they asked him are like the kind of questions I would ask Alan Dershowitz if he was in front of me, because the regular questions this man gets when he goes on these news programs, for the most part, are ridiculous. I've seen him sit through whole entire 15, 20-minute interviews with nobody bringing up Jeffrey Epstein. And again, look, we're not talking about somebody who was just an enabler, right? He was that, obviously. We're not talking about somebody that just had a personal relationship with him. He was certainly that as well. What we're talking about here is a man who is being credibly accused by Virginia Roberts of some heinous-ass, gross, disgusting conduct. And that should be brought up with any interview that he sits down for. Any one of these so-called journalists or newscasters or news people who don't have the courage to ask that kind of question and go after that line of questioning, well, they shouldn't interview this guy and they shouldn't have him on their program, because you have to be willing to go into the uncomfortable places when you have a guest on your show. Dershowitz laughed as the Tony Lahren-inspired Bonnie Davis added, "When you were negotiating that deal, did you say whore so many times you forgot the meaning?" The lawyer insisted he would never use that term to describe a young woman. Yeah, okay, sure, Dershowitz. We know the way that everybody talked in Jeffrey Epstein's circle. We've heard it firsthand from several different sources, including Maria. We know how everybody, the sort of terminology that was used to describe people. So you mean to think that I'm going to believe that you would not use the term whore to describe a young lady? Stop it. I don't believe that, and I doubt anybody else believes that either. The lawyer insisted he would never use that term to describe a young woman. When he characterized Epstein as an underdog in the case, the show's brash host Tyler Templeton came back with, "Man, I hope one day I can look over at 100 accusers and someone worth hundreds of millions of dollars and see that the rich pedophile is the underdog." When I first saw this, folks, I thought it was a joke. I thought like it was some sort of like skit on something Stephen Colbert has on his program. I didn't realize that Dershowitz, Mr. I Kept My Underpants On, really was being interviewed by these cartoon character these journalists inspired by cartoon characters. I really had no idea. So I thought it was a joke at first. But when I saw the clip and I actually saw Dershowitz and then I read a couple of articles, I was blown away by the line of questioning. And with them being cartoons, they could get away with a lot more, right? It would be like having Eric Cartman sit down and do an interview with Alan Dershowitz. From there, the cartoon host moved on to grill Dershowitz about his time spent on Epstein's private island. Have you ever been there? And if so, don't you hate it when Prince Andrew's ass knocks over your drink? One wanted to know. This is funny stuff, folks. Again, make sure in the description area you check out the actual link here at the Daily Beast, and you can watch the clip for yourself. And it's absolutely hilarious and very well done in my opinion. And kudos to Stephen Colbert and his team for stepping into a place a lot of people don't want to step when it comes to Dershowitz. As he has done in the past, Dershowitz confirmed that he did visit the island with his wife and daughter. "We spent one day there," he said. "There were no young people there. There were no girls. There were no women." Yeah, of course, Dershowitz. That's the only time you were ever there, sir. That's it. You know, because you told us that we should just believe it, right? And we should just move on because you're the great Alan Dershowitz and you're from Harvard. And we know that anybody from Harvard should just be trusted on the face value of it all, because Harvard has proven to be a very reliable institution in this whole mess. That's a big relief that you weren't there during Epstein's 20-year alleged pedophile phase, Keene joked, before introducing the night's sponsor. Pleasant dreams, natural sleep aid. Do you have trouble sleeping because you know Jeffrey Epstein's tapes are out there somewhere and could instantly destroy all you hold dear, Keene asked. When Dershowitz started to answer the rhetorical question, he told him they had to finish the ad read before they could continue with the interview. Oh, it's so great to see. Dershowitz, if anyone deserves to be mocked and made fun of, it's Alan I Kept My Underpants On Dershowitz. He takes himself way too seriously, and he thinks because he's a hotshot lawyer that he's going to have everybody kowtowing to him. When in reality, all you have to do is look at the picture that has been painted by several people, you know, from the volleyball, the Virginia Roberts situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just go down the list, and you start to see a picture of Alan Dershowitz as somebody who he certainly is trying to hide. Because when he comes into these interviews and he goes onto these talk shows, et cetera, he's Alan Dershowitz from Harvard. And the way Jeffrey Epstein would use his charity as his shield and his armor, Alan Dershowitz uses his position at Harvard as his armor. After all that, anyone else feel like a boiling hot shower? Templeton asked the crew as the segment started to wind down. All right, I've got to go to my friend's house where he offers every guest a massage from a woman in a recorded private room out of the good, non-blackmail part of his heart. Good night, everyone. And it's funny, right? But it's true. And that's the crazy part about this whole line of questioning and the fact that Dershowitz was asked these questions by cartoon character hosts. It's also sad that everybody is so scared of Dershowitz that we have to rely on this sort of mockery kind of reporting for these sort of questions to be asked. Don't you think that the legacy media should have the courage to ask these questions when Dershowitz is on their show? Don't you think they should have the courage to chase him down and get him on the record? Instead, they keep playing games, they have him on, and all they want to talk about is Trump this, Trump that, blah, blah, frickin' blah. How about we talk about what he's being credibly accused of? How about we talk about the fact that he enabled Jeffrey Epstein for quite some time? Can we talk about that, please? But before they let him go, they had to ask Dershowitz who he would flip on first if the feds come banging down his door, adding, "Please say Bill Clinton." "I have nobody to flip on," Dershowitz said with a nervous chuckle, "because I did nothing wrong, and I'm aware of nobody else who's done anything wrong, except for the person who no longer is alive." Oh, yeah, so just Jeffrey Epstein, right? According to these people, it was just Jeffrey Epstein. They had nothing to do with it. Dershowitz saw nothing, heard nothing, was involved with nothing, and you have to believe him because he's a Harvard lawyer. An absolute joke. The responses that we get from Dershowitz are the same that he gives every single time. Talk about prepared answers. Talk about not going deeper than just scratching the surface. How about you provide some receipts, Mr. Dershowitz? You've said time and time again that you'll be exonerated through the courts and this, that, the other thing. And look, I don't buy any of that shit. I don't buy it. We need to see some receipts. We've seen the proof of Virginia Roberts being very, very, very reliable. She's provided receipts. She's provided, there's been corroborated testimony. We have flight logs, etc., etc. And all we get from people like Dershowitz is a bunch of claptrap. All we get is a bunch of lip service. And nobody's buying it anymore. Nobody just believes you because you're the great Helen Dershowitz. Nobody believes you. You don't have the credibility for that to be the case. So, to the legacy media out there, the dumpster fire that is the legacy media, how does it feel to be one-upped by fake cartoon journalists? How does it feel to not have the courage to ask the hard questions? How does it feel to be useless? If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. And all of the other information about the podcast can also be found within the description box. All right, everybody, I'll be back tomorrow. And we'll do it all over again because we had so much fun tonight and earlier today.